everyone. Good afternoon. Mike Ellerkamp, the Golden Rule Warrior. Quite frequently, wanted to just say, introduction to Facebook Live. I've kind of got a Facebook Live challenge going on with some of my friends, so we're going to try to start doing this a couple times a week probably. I'll try to figure out a good time and days. Might do it on Thursdays to start off with, just once a week. But we're gonna do one at least once a week, and we're gonna be doing a lot of talking about the Golden Rule and all of its aspects. And the thing about this one is, the reason why I'm doing this one first is most often the thing I'm asked about more than anything else when people talk to me about my writing a book, the simple little rule, the Golden Rule rediscovered, is that rediscovering the Golden Rule. Why? Why in the world the Golden Rule? And so this is going to be a short video that's going to talk about that, and just to kind of give that introduction and see what y'all think. I'd like to hear comments from you, and let me know what you think about it, and let me know what questions you have about the Golden Rule. This is the adult version of the Golden Rule. And I say that because you should know, hopefully, most of us were brought up with the Golden Rule. So that being, Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. That also comes out of the Jewish culture. Also, Hillel the Elder also taught, do unto or love thy neighbor as thyself. But we also learned it as do unto others as you would have them do to you. Confucius used the negative version of it: do not do to others what you would not like done to you. It's an interesting story how I got there. I had a little falling out with pick up the book and have a read. It should be fun. It's not that long and it's not that difficult. But I had a big falling out with the church, and I left in a huff, and I went looking for a way to find a spiritual connection without it being necessarily the Bible. I wanted to find out how I could connect again with a spiritual life. I lost that when I had this big fight with the church. I went out. I started studying everything. The first thing I went to was mythology, and Joseph Campbell was my favorite, and he led me to try to discover things like in Buddhism and Confucianism. And I actually kind of started with Confucius, and he is the first time that I came across the Golden Rule again outside of Christianity. And that was interesting. A little tidbit of information. It just kind of got filed away, and I moved on. I read all of Confucius' work and things about Confucius and Confucianism and Chinese and that culture. I then moved on to Buddhism, and once again the Golden Rule pops up in Buddhism, and again very interesting, but it was just sort of another data point, another piece of information. Two of the philosopher teachers teaching the Golden Rule. I moved on to the Greek mythology and Greek culture, and I got into Plato and Aristotle, and guess what? Once again we find the Golden Rule, both Plato and Aristotle. Plato is a student of Socrates, and I have a feeling that it probably comes out of Socrates' teaching, but Plato is the first one, and then Aristotle is Plato's student, and so Aristotle also is talking about the Golden Rule. So there's two more data points. We also have the Hebrew prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, all talking about the Golden Rule. That's important in that, in just a minute you're going to see this. But then as I moved out beyond those kinds of things, Zarathustra, he is, that's a Persian religion, a monotheistic Persian religion. Often, most people believe that Cyrus the Great was a follower of Zarathustra. And again, the Golden Rule. Here's the interesting point about that. The interesting point is that every one of those people that I've just mentioned, Confucius, actually, and we could go Lao Tzu as well. So Confucius and Lao Tzu out of China, Buddha in India, Aristotle and Plato in Greece. The three Hebrew prophets are Middle East, around the Mediterranean Sea, and Persia is Zarathustra, and others are all existing at or about 500 BC. I now know, I didn't know then, but I do know now, I now know that a guy named Carl Jaspers coined the phrase axial age, or axial period, a tipping point in human history when people were beginning to understand self. All of these people are part of that axial age. And the golden rule, among other things, is one of the things that pops out of the of that axial age, along with a lot of social things, a big, very strong part of society begins to really form at this point. The Chinese culture is really, you've got a big dynasty in China. There's a lot of struggle going on there. This is Confucianism is actually teaching things that have to do with, the political elite following a very integrous way of doing their politics, running the country. Plato and Aristotle, similarly, not in a secular mode, not in a religious mode, teaching ethics, morals, and integrity things for students that end up being leaders. Aristotle was a teacher of, and I'm going to forget the guy. I hate it when I do that. But anyway, each of these people, Ezekiel, the three Hebrew prophets, they're obviously trying to keep the Jewish nation from getting out of line, and they're teaching. So they're teaching politics. They're teaching, integrity and truthfulness and trustworthiness, righteousness to the Jewish kings who are failing miserably at that point. Cyrus is a Persian king. He's being led by Zarathustra. So in each case, you've got philosopher teachers helping to develop and control or run the knowledge base of the people who are running the countries at that period in time. And the fact that these are all happening around 500 BC is, pretty nearly a miracle. They can't know each other. There's no connection between them at this point. They're absolutely disconnected. There's no cultural diffusion. They're not communicating with one another. The two in China may be, but the two in China, Buddha in India, Aristotle and Plato don't. Aristotle and Plato know each other, but Plato does not know Buddha or Zarathustra. He may know Zarathustra. There may be some connection there, and the Hebrew prophets obviously knew of the Persian religion under Cyrus, because Cyrus was the guy that let them go back out of Babylon and go back to Israel and start the nation again. So they probably were aware of Zarathustra, but they weren't all known to one another, and they weren't sharing this information in a way that they would each be teaching this as a way to run a country in the correct manner. And that, to me, when I connected those dots and I realized that was a very important piece of history, it was like that aha moment that it was like, hello, how can this be that these people all are, without knowing each other, without any direction from other people, in other words, they're not combined together and boosting each other in a way that keeps them motivated to teach this particular thing. Anyway, it's a cool thing. It was just totally inspiring, and so that got me just launched. I went off like a rocket, and I started trying to follow all these different little rabbit trails to see how this brought me back around to a way of understanding a connection, a spiritual connection maybe, or a conscious connection, and that's what I write about in the book. That's the story, and that's sort of what got me started into the book. I began making notes, putting those notes together, and about 2.5 years ago, Molly and I, my wife and I, decided, okay, it's time for me to start teaching, coaching the things that I was putting together that had to do with the Golden Rule, and at that point, I was like, okay, so let's figure this out, and so I started really kind of on the speaking side, and speakers will tell you got to write a book, and nonfiction authors will tell you got to speak. So it's like the chicken and egg. Which one do you do first? And I just decided let's get the book done first, because I figured it would be difficult, and it would take away from any kind of speaking engagement that I might be trying to do. So I went off to a seminar, figured out how to do a book, and spent basically 2 years writing it and getting it all put together, edited. We had it edited 3 times, and it's important at this point, I think, that we bring it back around, this Golden Rule, and start talking about it again. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get it written and get it out. So I'm tickled that I'm at this point. I'm happy to get this first one started. If you have any comments, please send them my way. I'll repost this later, and we'll make sure that it gets out to as often as we can. I'll put it up on my website as well. I can put that in any comments, I guess. I'll add that to some comments as we get to the end, but it would be MikeEllerkamp.com. You can also buy the book there, along with Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Balboa Press. You can go out to their website and get it there as well. Anyway, thanks everybody for being out there, and I appreciate your spending the time with me today. And thank you very much. We'll see y'all later. Bye.